what is at the root of the self? If a person just discovers so many layers, like jealousy, arrogance, and all of the effort that are, and sort of inner manipulations that keep repeating to try and prop up certain images about the self or about life. What is it at the root? I guess, is it something good or bad, or like born of heaven or born of hell?
If someone has had a relatively healthy upbringing, if there haven't been very serious hiccups, if, for example, you're very, very close to your mom, let's just say both of the kids are immensely close to Sarah. Let's say if something was to happen to Sarah, okay, that she gets sick and then she dies. Okay. This is not a small hiccup for Sophia or Yusuf. It's going to be traumatic. And I'm not quite sure if I have the proper tools to put these two kids together in the right way. And even if I did, I'm not quite sure how long it will take to put these kids together in the right way so they can be relatively functional. Okay. So if they've had some serious issues at a very young age, then you're talking about a self that has kind of blossomed in a very shattered and toxic way. So I don't really know how to fix any of that. I don't even know how to talk about that, So when you speak about, the self, I want to make sure that you're talking about someone who's had a relatively kind of normal upbringing. There hasn't been any serious issues, with abuse of any kind, with loss of any kind. Because it's really difficult for a mind of a 5-year-old to kind of put together what just has happened. It's just too much, okay? So if you were to kind of do this in a very systematic way, is that you have someone who's very normal, okay? All right, so what do kids do when they're kids? Well, you kind of just play with toys. That's how you want to entertain and occupy yourself. You ride your bike, you play soccer, then you go to school, you get spanked. You either like school or don't like school. I mean, these are just normal things that people go through. Then you kind of look at your friends and you realize, well, that person has graduated and this person has graduated, and something very natural happens to you, which is you become envious of the friends who have kind of prospered, and so you say, okay, maybe it's enough goofing around, maybe I should put myself back to school, and you do. And then this particular self is no longer playing with bicycles, now you're playing with books because you want to graduate. And so you graduate, now there's another self that's born which is now looking for a job, and you're not satisfied with working at In-N-Out or Home Depot, so you put yourself back to school and you graduate with a master's or a PhD, and now you become a CEO, okay? Now there's this different self that's at play. You're playing with different toys now. They're, you could say, much more mature in some ways, okay? Or maybe not, I don't really know. At any rate, now you say, okay, well, I'm spending like 12 hours working. I think it's time for me to get married. You have this deep need to find a companion. And so something about you changes. Okay, now you look for a companion. So remember, you're just changing. And by changing, I mean your desires begin to evolve. Your self-images begin to evolve because of the desires that you're having, because of the social environment and what is expected from you. If you happen to be around losers, then not too many things are going to be expected from you. You can continue to be losers. But thankfully, we have all these diverse group of people around us. Some happen to be losers, some happen to be not so losers. And those who are not so losers are going to push you to become better. You will hate them at the beginning, then you will be thankful for their presence in your life. Then after, being in a relationship for a while and suffering the boredom that lives in all relationships, you can look at your companion and say, I'm ready to be a mom. I'm ready to be a dad. You have no idea what you're asking, but nevertheless, it's part of what you are. And moved into it, you say, okay, well, I'm ready to be a mom. Okay, so you become a mom or a dad. And you kind of become distracted or just occupied for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And then, one kid is over there, doing his stuff, one kid over there doing her stuff, and you kind of look at your husband and, he's bald and he's fat and he's no good. And you say, well, what have I done with my life? It's not a question you ask when you were 5 or 25 or 35. You're asking this at a very critical junction in your life. How it happened, why it happened, that's for a different day. But you're asking this question now. Now remember, all lives are complicated. You've had complications, arguments with your husband, troubles with your kids, but nothing that was not fixable. Now, you say, I want something more. Your husband asks, well, what the hell is that you want? You wanted children, well, there they are. You want a house? Well, here it is. You want a car? Well, that it is. What does he want? So, well, I read this book. Oh, God. What book is it now? It's called Daughter of Fire. Okay. Okay, what about the book? This woman went to India. Okay. You want to go to India now? I want to go find a guru. A what? A guru. What is that? A teacher. Well, just say teacher. You don't have to be so fancy. Just say you're looking for a guru. A teacher. So you say, okay, well, I'm going to go to India to find a teacher. Well, where in India? India is a big place. It says over 1 billion people. How are you going to find a teacher amongst 1 billion people? Well, God. Oh, God, okay. God will help me. I have faith. I know that He will put someone in my path. Now you're talking about a different self. This particular self is saying, I can walk away from the husband, walk away from the kids, walking away from the house, from all the stuff, and I want to go somewhere. So when you speak about a self, which one are we talking about? Which toy is the self wanting to play with now? Is it the spiritual stuff, the marriage stuff, the children's stuff, the job stuff? Which one is it? And it doesn't have to be one and only one. You usually have one which is very dominant and the rest basically are footnotes. It could be right now I'm basically focused on my job. Below the job is my husband. Below the husband are my kids. Below the kids, our house is the house where I clean like once a month. Okay. When you watch Irina tweeting some of her ridiculous videos, talking about ridiculous things, you kind of sit back and say, really? She sounds so harsh and so strong. Is this the same woman who cried in 700 pages, page after page, she was crying, and you have a woman who's very soft, very broken, for about 20 years of her life. All of a sudden, something about her changes. She becomes very, very strong and powerful from the inside. And I doubt very much that the last 20 years of her life she would ever cry. She had lost those kind of emotions. She would cry differently, no longer with tears. Um, when you also speak about very basic human emotions such as jealousy, um, the emotion of jealousy is a very, very personal emotion. It's very private, it's very individualistic. In other words, when you see your neighbor whom you don't know and you don't really care to know, when you see them holding hands with another person and walking down the street, you're not going to envy them. You're not going to be jealous of them. Okay? I mean, you may long to have a companionship for yourself, but it's not going to be that kind of jealousy. What happens though, if Allison, and you guys are friends, if she's walking down the street and she's holding this guy's hand and they're very close and intimate, the sort of jealousy you will have towards her, the sort of envy and resentment and anger and a sense of abandonment, betrayal, you can actually feel them, And the truth is, you have every right to feel them, it's something I've always believed in, which is when a fruit is ripe, it just falls on its own, I think what usually happens, we read all these books and we have all these imaginations about ourselves, that because I had a dream about Jesus Christ, or maybe because I walked with Jesus Christ, I should be like him. I should embrace death when it comes to me. I should look at my mother and just see her as simply a simple woman with whom I have no real attachments. I should not be married. I should not have children. I should not buy a house. I should not have any security because Jesus didn't have a security. Okay. But the truth is, I have those highs, and I have every right to be there and think those thoughts. But I have another 15 hours of the day left, and I'm very, very human. I feel jealous, I don't feel lonely, and I feel resentful. And they're just normal to have. Now, the more space you occupy down here, the less of these emotions you will have. You will have them nevertheless. And I think Bhai Sahib is absolutely right in his comment that as long as you remain in your flesh, you will always have human components inside you that will contaminate your spirit. And it's the same thing you'll find in the Gospel of Judas. As long as you live in flesh, you're going to suffer poison, coming either from the outer world or the inner world. It goes without saying. There were many, many, many moments we would sit in gathering with Hussein. And, I've kind of said this plenty of times where we're all there for the same reason. Well, I don't really know why we were there. We would just go there. I can't really name or put eloquently. I mean, I can be cheesy and say, yeah, we were there for wisdom, or we were there for truth, or we were there because we were seekers, or we were there for God. I don't think any of those things were true. We just found Hussein, I found Hussein to be my home. It's vague, it's ambiguous, but I can't do it any better right now. Okay. Now, all three of us would go, me, Mehrdad, and Hussein. Sometimes Hussein would just look at Mehrdad. And it was more than jealousy. I was angry. I would say to myself, I'm just not going to come back here next week. Because when you have a teacher who doesn't look at you, you are made to feel invisible. It's like your presence or absence makes no difference for him because he's just paying attention to this other fella. It's upsetting, But I was 20, and I didn't have much understanding. Not that I do now, but I understand things slightly better. And I don't think Hussein really understood these things either. And they were passing things. It wasn't like, it stuck to you and stayed with you for like 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. It stuck with you for about 5-10 minutes or maybe half hour, and then we would have some tea, and all the hurt feelings would go away, and then that was it. If you don't really want to have those emotions, you should just get yourself to a place where you just don't feel about anything, period.
How you do that?
But that'd be stupid. Why would anyone want to get, huh?
Why not?
Why would you want to get yourself to a place where you don't feel?
Well, you don't want them anymore.
No. I'm not talking about not wanting specific feelings, just not feeling at all, because you need to have feelings to be motivated, If you, for example, read a book and it made you feel, you're going to look for the same kind of books to force you to have those feelings again, because those feelings give you kind of a meaning and a richness to your life. I'm not talking about bad feelings, If on the other hand, because the way you approached it is no different from your first question, I have these feelings, they've been haunting me, traumatizing me, I don't want them anymore. So how do I start those feelings? Well, I don't know. It's something I told my class a couple of days ago. If you really want to get rid of feelings or certain just habits, you need to join a cult, a good cult. You need to go somewhere where every time you exhibit the same behavior, someone just smacks the hell out of you and doesn't give you the privilege, this sense of entitlement that you have the right to come to his or her space and act the way you always act, because it's good for you. It's painful and you won't like it. In as much as people say they want to change, they have no idea the price they have to pay,
So if you don't want jealousy to be there, is there a remedy for not to be jealous, or is that our nature?
Well, jealousy is, it can be good or bad. If you're jealous because Allison has found a boyfriend, well, that may motivate you to take a shower every day, put some makeup, put some nice clothes, go out there, sit in a coffee shop and do your work, and just in case there's a nice looking man, sitting across the room, you start winking at him. Yeah, or you begin the art of just being flirtatious a little bit, and it doesn't make you a whore or a prostitute. It's just something that human beings desire, which is, I want a companionship, and there is nothing wrong with that. And why the hell would you want to deny that, which makes you more human and makes your life richer and more meaningful, Sometimes, jealousy acts or forces you to become even more poor, more resentful. It'll inspire more hatred. That's not the sort of jealousy you want to have. Almost all emotions have two wings to them. They could either be negative, and you could take them to be positive. You know, you can, you know, someone dies, you can be very sad about them. You can be very sad for your mother, for your father, this or that. Or you could, you know, like Gilgamesh. It makes you sad, true enough. But it also inspires you to kind of ask, well, what am I doing? If death can come to me at any time, why do I keep wasting my life, my time with having ridiculous emotions and having ridiculous friends and doing ridiculous things? You know, so it's the same event. You know, you have two brothers, their mother has died. One screams and shouts and fights with the wife or the husband. The other says, okay, I'm just going to go to my room and read lots of books to figure out what I should do for the rest of my life, or with the rest of my life. You know, there are, I think, certain things. If you're talking about the spiritual self, okay, imagine you have 3 or 4 bedrooms, okay. One of the bedrooms is reserved for your, say, reflective moments. You go in there, you meditate, you pray, you read books, and you write books. That's your room. Now, if you have like 5 kids and you have lots of guests, if you don't lock the room in which you meditate and you do work on yourself, for yourself, there's a good chance that the kids are going to bring their toys there. There's a good chance that your guests are going to bring their coffee mugs and sit there and just yap on about ridiculous things. Okay? So if you want your spiritual room to remain clean and protected, make sure there's a lock and no one is able to enter it without your permission. Okay. So here is Stacy, the spiritual self. Okay. Now it doesn't matter how spiritual you may be. You have a thing called a stomach. It needs food. Okay. If you don't want your stomach to pay a visit to your spirit, make sure it's full and it doesn't scream and cry for food. Because if it does, the spiritual part will be forced to listen. And then you'll be dragged out of this room and you'll be all belly and no spirit. Okay? Make sure you have a physical space of your own. Because what's going to happen is that other people will have the power to enslave you, to create emotions, create thoughts that you may not enjoy. Okay? And so the more you can secure this, the more you can make sure that these other components don't go here, the less you will feel jealous, the less you will feel resentment, the less you will feel envy, the less you'll feel anger. You will feel them once in a while, just not as much. You know. And it's kind of good to respect the fact that, you know, it's kind of like the Indians. There's a part of you that enjoys karma, pleasure. Respect that. You know, you want to have sex? Have sex. Just have it with someone whose company you enjoy. Don't trash your body. Don't just have it be around just anybody. Have fun with it. You know. Then there is this power, you know, Artha. Respect that. You need power to survive. You need money. You need education. You need the ability to think well. You know, because if you don't think well, you can't choose the right pleasures for your life. You know. You need this thing called like relationships. You know. You just need them. Even Jesus Christ needed them. Everybody needs them. You know, if you happen to be the Buddha and you happen to be an ass, no one's going to listen to you. You have a bad temperament. You have a bad personality. Who are you going to talk to? The trees? You know? It's okay. So, you know, you've been meditating, you come out and you're tired. You know? It takes a lot of energy to sit there quietly. And every time you have a ridiculous thought to try to kind of figure out what it is and where it came from and how to get rid of it. It wears out your emotions, your intellect, and your body. And so after an hour you get up and you want to watch TV. You just need to enjoy that. You know? You know, one of the difficulties with I don't know. You know, I think assumption that is created for all of us is that once you become interested in these things, you just have to be a monk. You know. You know, when Yusuf is around, I can't even touch Sarah. I can't give her coffee. You know, I can't even give her a napkin because Yusuf gets really, really jealous. And he screams and pushes me away. You know. You know, I think the best way to approach all of this is that the first 10 years of your life, if you happen to be on a spiritual quest, you give those 10 years just to Socrates. Just give those 10 years to Socrates. Give him or her everything that you have. Okay? It doesn't mean you won't doubt. It doesn't mean that you won't have fear. But you just commit yourself to this person for about 10 years. Okay? Once this person has rearranged the way that you feel and think and see the world, then you no longer need to be around that person. Just go back to life. Because when you go back to life, you have a GPS inside you. It doesn't mean you won't be led astray once in a while. You won't lose your way, you know. But it does suggest that this GPS is going to be inside you. And you will have access to it most often. Sometimes it gets lost and you make some mistakes and you can recover very, very quickly, you know. I think the difficulty is when you don't give yourself to something fully because you want to have access to all these other things as well. And it just gets to be too much. And no one can help you. I mean, I'm not talking about you. You know, it's... you know, it's kind of like if you want to be helped through the, say, ideas of Buddhism. Okay? But you're greedy in all the wrong ways. So what you do is, as you're eating the ideas of Buddha, you also begin to eat the ideas of Confucius. Then you also begin to eat the ideas of Jordan Peterson and then Jesus Christ. But when you have, you know, eating all these ridiculous things, the only thing that you will, do is give yourself diarrhea. And then you say, well, I've read all these books and all I have is confusion. Well, of course you have confusion. Stay with the Buddha for 10, 15, 20 years. Do exactly as he says, And then if you want to go out there and read Tao Te Ching, go ahead. Because your digestive system is now fully mature and functioning well.